over, and then you didn't realize I put like knives in there.
Hey, all right, folks, let's go begin. So, hey, it is October the 5th, and today we are going over chapters, subchapters 38, 39 out of our book. This has to do with what were the Vikings and Scandinavians doing in France and England right after the time of Charlemagne. This is going to lead us up into the Norman invasion of England that's going to change England and shape what will eventually be the English language and law that will transfer to America. So there's some relevance there. All right, so the terms of the board are after Charlemagne, Rollo in Normandy, Alfred the Great, the Danes in England, and Edward the Confessor. Now, if you are an online student and if you have not completed some of your assignments, you need to go ahead and get on that, because not this week, but next week is the last grading period for the report cards. After that, grades are going to be like frozen in place. You won't be able to make it up. You won't be able to change it. So you better do it while you can, especially if you have a 0. So, really?
Yeah.
Good. I don't remember anybody's grades, honestly. I'm impartial, but yeah, 100's high. Wow. Okay. All right, so let me show you the images from today first. So the Vikings are going to be sweeping in. If you remember, their longboats are good about going not across oceans, not just about going across oceans like we talked about yesterday, but also about going up and down rivers. And so Paris, it's not, your book's correct in saying, hey, Kelly, turn around. Your book's correct in saying that it wasn't a very large city at this time, but it was a fortified city. And it was built along a river, so the Vikings could come up on it. And so they're going to be sieged by Vikings multiple times. Luckily for Paris, the Vikings, kind of like you can make a comparison with ancient Sparta. They weren't very good at conquering cities or going through walls and things like that. They weren't good at siegecraft, but they're persistent. And here's a painting of an attack the Vikings were having on Paris in like 885, 886. And again, around 900, we're going to see them come back again. And their leader is going to be Rollo. So here we have medieval picture of some Vikings coming in on their boats. So they're wearing all the fancy chain, got the cool kid shields, spears, and all that. Not too shabby, and I'm not sure what this is. It looks like a guy fishing. Another guy holding the fish. There's somebody talking to his fish. All right, so the Vikings are going to be wreaking havoc all through Germany and France, and as we'll see, England, with the Danes. And so this is that chapel your book was talking about, built by Charlemagne. The Vikings are going to conquer it, and they're even going to have their horses stable inside of it. You might remember this from our extra credits video we watched on the Vikings some weeks ago. Here's a statue of Rollo. He's going to be very famous for being a Viking leader who's going to intentionally become a subject to the King of France, though he's not going to be controlled by the King of France, nor are his immediate ancestors. And they're going to found a segment of France called Normandy. It's going to be a very strong duchy ruled by a duke who's going to be so powerful, he's basically going to be able to control the king at times, and he's going to be able to wage war on his own and conquer England, as we'll see later. Not Rollo, but one of his offspring later on after him. So it's going to convert to Christianity. They're going to intermarry in with the French people and speak French and adopt a lot of their ways, but they're going to keep a lot of that warrior spirit. And of course, Normandy we'll definitely talk about tomorrow, because we're going to talk about William the Conqueror. And we're going to see a connection between England and France that will last for a very long time. This is Egbert of Wessex. He's going to be known as a king who's going to be able to help stave off a lot of these invasions. He's going to spend a lot of his time in battle. So he was pretty well known for that. And here we have Alfred the Great. Alfred is going to be able to drive back the Danes, and he's also going to do a lot of things that England's never seen before with its own kings. Whenever England was part of the Roman Empire, it had a lot of financial success, literacy, wealth, education, things like that. But here we have an actual Englishman who's going to promote education and writing, who's actually going to help bolster a lot of the farming and the economy. He's going to build England's first navy. He's going to do a lot of things to try to protect his people in those monasteries and all those things. But unfortunately, like a lot of great leaders at this time, it's not going to outlast him. So when he's gone, the period of peace and success and things like that is going to be over. Kind of like Charlemagne.
That always happens.
It happens a lot in these areas, in these times. Now, when the Danes come back, they're essentially going to be, you think a lot of conquerors do this. They don't tell you how to run your little governments or anything like that, but they expect taxes or bribes. Kind of like the Khans will do that later on with Genghis Khan and the Mongolians. You'll see this throughout other various conquerors throughout history. And so they call this Danegeld, like Danish gold. So the townspeople would have to put together money and pay off the Vikings. It's good for the Danes because they don't have to go around slaughtering people and risk their own lives. And the people figure, hey, it's better than being slaughtered in the middle of the night or the morning. So here you have Danelaw. This is going to be the part of England. It's going to be pretty much overrun by the Danish people. Here you have Wales. Remember, that's where the Celts moved. Here you have Wessex. This is where we're talking about a lot of our English kings and stuff like that. It will be united later, but we'll get to that later. And here, this is from the famous Bayeux Tapestry, which we'll talk more about later. And this is Edward the Confessor. And so this is like a tapestry where you essentially have noble ladies like stitch a pictorial story of how Normandy is going to make a claim on England. And you're going to have a connection between France and England for a very long time. So, and here you see, like in medieval art, the higher somebody's station is in life, the bigger that person is in art. So it's like symbolic, kind of like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The pharaoh is like a giant, but his servants are like little bitty midget people. Well, it's the same here. It's like normal human symbology. So,
I was gonna say it, but.
you're so cool. Nobody was gonna go there. Nobody.
Because it's not.
Hey, great. My daughter just tested negative for COVID. Yeah. All right. So,
Fun.
well, it's sinus infection. We knew it was sinus infection. We're all like, she gets it like 5 times a year. So, but she's got to have it or she can't go back to school. All right. So, after Charlemagne, what happened?
I think that
Well, yeah. How? Wait. Where? When? What? What do you mean?
I don't know. I
don't know.
A random word.
Yeah, well, that is it.
That's the first thing that popped.
Yes, Ellie. You were saying something? Yeah, did you say or was that you, Ariel? It came from this direction. What, Ariel? Help us.
I said, because I knew the minute.
France was under attack.
Yeah. So we're here, France. We'll just say, like Frankish territory, right? Remember, what was his grandkids busy doing?
Fighting.
Yeah. Just like what trust. So you could think of them as like the ultimate trust fund babies, right? They're born rich and then they're just off like squabbling and fighting, and they have no care for human life. Sounds like a trust fund baby to me. All right, so Frankish lands weakened by civil war. And so Vikings attack. They attack France, but what else would we say they attack?
Everything.
Oh, yeah, kind of. But what other mainland European country?
Britain.
Italy, Rome, sis, I don't even
He's
know.
so
Switzerland, Greenland.
Germany.
Germany.
Oh.
Now, Germany's not a
How
country
close
yet.
you can get to that?
It's not going to be a country for like 1,000 years after this. But I mean, it's where we call Germany now. So good. Yeah, they're totally wreaking havoc, right? They're going down the rivers, going down the ocean, sailing along, doing these nighttime raids, slaughtering people.
It does say Paris though.
It does.
That
Paris,
was
France.
the time they attacked, but they.
Exactly. Yeah. And so Like, the document I gave you last week on Lindisfarne, of course, that's over in England, but all of Germany and France, the land of the Franks, was going through this where they're like living in fear. You would just hear about the village next door. The next day, all the men are killed. Some of the girls are kidnapped. All of their wealth's taken. They burned down their little huts. Now they got nothing left. So just horrible stuff. Like they weren't just going over there and like swatting them on the back of the head or something. So traumatic. Well, yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. So then there's like no more life, but that's bad.
Then there's like no one like.
They've been smited.
Yeah, a royal smot. All right, so like we said, yeah. So even Paris is being attacked because it just happens to be along a river, and so we move on to Rollo, who's going to be a good unifier for a lot of these Vikings. And so, what's his deal with him in Normandy?
So at first, like the French king was like granted him like a region,
Mm-hmm.
and in like exchange for his like acceptance to Christianity and like acknowledge that the French king is his lord. He's like, no. So yeah, that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he settled what was the Duchy of Normandy,
Mm-hmm.
and the people who settled there were called Normans, and like adopted French language and culture
Uh-huh.
instead of their pagan squeeze. And it remained independent until the 13th century.
Yeah, so area called Normandy. So we had to convert, don't become Frenchmen. Now, the extra credit video was very good about saying why the King of France would do this. So one is he wants to stop Rollo from attacking him. But why does he have them up along the coast at the mouth of that very river? It's because they want to stop further raids. Yeah, it's called a buffer state. We countries do this all the time. You make a buffer state where you have like, let's say you live here, your enemies live here. There's land in the middle. You convince the countries over here to be your friends. So if the bad guys want to attack you, they got to attack them first. It's like a wall, like a human country wall. So, so this will equal a buffer state to prevent Viking raid. Yeah, raids. So yeah, it's pretty crafty, right?
Smart brain.
Like we did that in the Cold War. Eastern Europe was kind of like a buffer zone between Europe, Western Europe, and Russia. So these things happen. There's going to be a buffer between Europe, we'll see later, and the Ottoman Empire. So kind of like this this battleground between Christian nations and the Muslim nations. So we'll get to that cheery stuff later. All right, so Alfred the Great. So we're going to skip over Egbert for now, but he is going to be one of your Quizlet terms. So like on a quiz, I don't know, if we decide to quiz over this chapter, we might talk about it a bit more. Right, Robert? All right, so Alfred the Great, where was he king of?
Wessex?
Yeah, king of Wessex.
And he was the grandson of Egbert.
Yeah, okay.
He was 24 when he took the throne.
Yeah, so he was relatively young. We're going to say, we're going to call that England because the English people are going to consider this. He's the only king that historians have titled the Great. And a lot of that has to do with in a period where there was a lot of darkness, a lot of attacks and things like that. Compared to much of the rest of the world, this was kind of like a little small golden age for England. And there's not really any bad press about it. So he was a very well-educated man and all these other things, especially considering the time. So what all does he do that helps out his people?
He brings back or like restores literature.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, he restores
English
literature.
Saxon writing and stuff. And like their laws.
Yes.
He like rebuilt churches and monasteries. And basically just brought back education. The English education.
Yeah. So yeah, education, laws, literature. What about the defense of his people? What does he do?
He wins a battle.
Yeah, so
Creates treaties.
yeah, defeats the Danes. Yeah, he secures treaties for no more invasions. Built a navy, and it was a defensive navy, so he wasn't going around trying to conquer others. He's also going to build a lot of fortifications and things like that. So he's going to try to build up ways to defend his people as well. And so this is important for us, Anglophones, English-speaking people, is that what we inherit from some of the works of Alfred the Great are things like his laws some of these laws will come down and influence even the laws we have today. His influence over literature, no, it was not English literature, but it was literature in England. Of course, it was Latin. Almost all writing was in Latin back then. But still, it was something that was kind of like a bright light for the time. So, he doesn't last forever. And those pesky Danes come back to get themselves some. So, what do the Danes do now? Oh, murder? Okay.
I think he did that as a joke.
I mean, there was some, I'm sure, still is today, right? So
Always.
let's hear from somebody else because Zoe's carrying all of your water right now. So let's see. Oh, how come whenever I look at everyone, their eyes dart away? Like I'm like, yeah, whenever I look at it. So, hey, Hunter, what were those pesky Danes doing to the English? I'll show you a picture. Yeah, so continued invasion, we'll go with that. Hey, what else, Logan? What did they demand from the people?
Did Kelby say that or did Mr. White say that?
What did they demand from the English people when they whenever they come and conquer?
I've said it 5 times now. I've literally said
What?
it 5 times. Gold.
Yeah, gold. Yeah, demanded money. You will say gold, yeah. And they called it Danegeld. I'm going to spell that, which I'm sure you can't figure out what that means. Yeah, so now are they going to permanently settle here?
No.
No. Are any of them? Shelby, what do you think?
No,
What was the
say no.
question?
Kelby said no.
Are they going to permanently settle any of this area in England? What do they call it? How do you remember?
Dangling.
No, not Dangland. No.
I seem to call it something with Langston.
Yeah, we'll take over
Iceland, Greenland, Scotland,
Eastern England. And they're going to call it Danelaw.
So I was
Sorry, I don't see that.
Oh,
That was it.
it's in there.
Where?
It's right there, see? She's trying to tell you. Yeah, so
I've been reading that.
it's okay. So, yeah, this is going to have an effect because you got to remember one thing about England. It's like a mix of people who their ancestry goes back to like the Celts. They were ruled by the Romans for a while. They're going to have the Anglo-Saxon invasion, which is some of those Scandinavians. Then they're going to have the Danes come in, and then later on we're going to see the French are going to take over. So England is a place that's going to be conquered over and over again.
England does not get a break.
It worked out.
It constantly gets stabbed.
But it's going to be a culture that's going to like have a lot of different attributes to it. Just so you know. All right, so let's move on to the last one. And so, yeah, Edward the Confessor. So what was his deal, Pickle? Yes, sir.
He lived in Normandy. Most of his early life in Normandy.
Yeah, so he's from Normandy.
He was a saint.
Yeah, so the Catholic Church is going to name him a saint because he was known for being a very pious guy. So from Normandy, but okay, what else do we have?
He brought with him a large following of Normans whom he placed in high position.
Yeah, so is he going to be king of somewhere?
Yes.
His dynasty doesn't.
Yeah,
last
king
very long.
of.
The old West Saxon.
Yeah, so let's put down king of England. And this is going to build on later because he's going to lead to an invasion of Normandy. King of England that brought many Normans.
And he prepared for a conquest of the country.
Yes, and that's where we're going to pick up next time. So all of this is going to lead to something else. So the destabilization after Charlemagne, then we're going to have invasions. The invasions are going to lead to settlements. Periods of relief, more invasions. Then we're going to have things become a little stable, and then we're going to see more invasions after that. So one after another. But each one of these things is also changing the culture, and we're going to see even later the language of England. It's going to change the customs and the laws. It's going to become things that's going to influence us later on down the line. So,
You know who you should watch, like, along with extra history? His name is Oversimplified.
I don't like oversimplified.
Why?
I don't like oversimplified. I don't like oversimplified. I don't like Crash Course. It's just a taste thing. I just don't like it. Hey, when we come back next time, we're going to talk about chapters 40 and 41. It's going to end it for today. Talk to you later, kids.
So I'm gonna, I got your company, and I'm just stick to it. But I got